Hi, Nina, and welcome to the Special Needs Parenting Summit Stop Tantrums Before They Start.
Thank you
Thanks
so
for
much.
being here.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yes, I'm so excited to talk with you. And just to introduce you to everyone, this is Nina Palmo, and I'm going to read her bio because I love it. She's a Nordic born, Midwestern raised Texas denizen after more than a dozen years in the Austin area. She's developed a serious love for breakfast tacos, but still can't say y'all without feeling like an imposter. I lived in
True.
Georgia for like 10 years, so I relate. It's like, yeah, I have a PhD, or she has a PhD in psychology, and feels lucky to work in her dream job at a local university. On the home front, she has another dream job of being a mama to two daughters, ages 7 and 5. And she spends a lot of time thinking and talking about attachment parenting, alternative education, and intentional living. So wonderful. So wonderful to have you.
Thank you so much. And I realize I must be a little busier than I thought because apparently I haven't updated my bio. My kids are now 9 and 7.
When I read that, I was like, it's probably old. Like, it's probably,
All good.
we
The
can't
rest of it is
spend,
true.
we're too busy coaching people to be updating our bios.
Ages just change fast.
I know. It probably felt like just yesterday that you put that on there too.
Exactly. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. So, what I really wanted to dive in with you today is really mostly about nature and how getting outside has a really profound impact on how we regulate. And that is what impacts tantrums, meltdowns, and rage episodes. So, we're going to talk a lot about that, but we'll sprinkle some other intentional parenting questions into the mix. Because anyway, getting to know Nina on her Instagram page, I saw this really powerful quote, and I wanted to start with this because I definitely can relate to this and how I don't like it and I want a different way. So I'm going to read you guys this quote. It says, society says, keep your kids busy, plan constant activities, manage a tight schedule, don't let them fall behind, monitor their every move, make everything educational, sign them up for lots of lessons, don't let them get dirty or messy. Also, society, kids are exhausting. I just laughed out loud when I read that. And I would love to hear your perspective on this kind of overcommitment culture and what's an alternative and what are the benefits of the alternative?
Yeah, I'd love to jump into that. I think we parents are exhausted, and part of it is that the way that kind of traditional parenting is set up right now in the US and similar countries is that we've set it up to be really exhausting. It's not the kids themselves that are necessarily exhausting, although certainly they can be,
Right.
especially in the younger years. But yeah, it's really kind of the setup of our society and this overcommitment culture. And part of this comes from the fact that we're all living in this era of concerted cultivation, is what a sociologist named Annette Lareau calls it, where we're treating parenting like a gardening project, where we're getting in there, we're pruning, we're weeding, we're watering, we're doing all the things to make sure that we're shaping kids exactly how they should be, like a bonsai tree. Like we're just micromanaging every little thing. And this type of approach usually involves a lot of different lessons, a lot of adult-led activities, structured activities, and it's not entirely without merit, because kids who go through this type of childhood, they do end up learning how to interact with authority figures. They're comfortable with adults. They can advocate for themselves. Typically, these same parents who sign their kids up for everything also listen to their kids. They explain everything. They take time to reason with them, and these are all great things. The downside of it is that kids don't always have a chance to really figure out who they are. They don't have a ton of time to develop deep bonds with their siblings or their cousins or their neighborhood kids, and they really don't have a lot of time to just be a kid and play. And I think what we really have room for is to kind of capture the benefits of this without necessarily overscheduling. So this is actually the inspiration for my blog name and my social media name, which is Raising Wildflower Kids, is that we have a lot of room to treat kids more like wildflowers. So we don't have to prune them like perfect gardens. Instead, we just kind of let them grow more freely. And wildflowers aren't completely hands off. We still have to provide the right environment, But once the environment is right, we let them grow freely instead of trying to, prune and water and weed and, get in there doing every little thing. That I think gets exhausting.
Yes, I love that analogy of the bonsai tree versus the wildflower kid, and what that what that suggests that a parent's role really is. And I that is really a powerful analogy, and I definitely am aligned with the wildflower way, but sometimes I can feel tempted to be more like the bonsai pruner because I question whether or not, oh, am I doing enough? Am I being enough of an opportunity maker? Am I doing the
Mhm.
right things? And I think as parents, we tend to really second guess ourselves.
It's true.
So,
I have to give credit to the bonsai wildflower analogy to Julie Lithcott Hames, who wrote the book How to Raise an Adult. And she was also a dean at Stanford University, and she has two kids of her own. And it wasn't until she worked with other people's kids as in the university setting that she realized, hey, our role is not actually to prune; it's to it's to provide the right environment for growth.
wow, yeah, no, I think that's really powerful because I'm going to share this analogy. I love some of these cute little shows that are more educational. And we were watching Creative Galaxy when my kids were younger. And I was sitting there, and the mom had, well, there was no dad in the picture. There was no other parent. So you're just seeing like this is a single mom. She had the baby in the Bjorn or some sort of carrier. She was an astronaut. Her child was getting a home cooked meal. She's great. This is Creative Galaxy. So he was had all these art projects, and she was totally involved and engaged. And I was thinking, this is the pressure to be a mom right now. And I
Exactly.
was a little salty about it because I was like, this pressure is too much.
It's too much. Exactly. No one can do all of those things at the same time.
Right. And just to feel like that's what it is to be a good mom. And if I can't do all those things, like what ball am I going to drop? You know,
Exactly.
so I feel like the wildflower approach is really beautiful because you are cultivating, you are caring, you are um, providing that atmosphere, but it doesn't have to go to an extreme. And I love that.
Exactly. And you're not a failure if you're not doing everything.
Exactly. Yeah. So how does this whole idea of wildflowers and being a little bit more easygoing with how scheduled we are, how does this impact how much time that we get to enjoy nature, and just thinking about that free play outside, and if it's inside on a rainy day or whatever, like, do you have a time frame that you recommend for that loose unstructured playtime or outside time?
Well, I do think that there's a direct connection between a lack of time in nature and this overscheduling culture, because I think a lot of parents are afraid to even spend a lot of time outside because they're not sure what their kids are going to be doing there. What if they're not learning? What if they're falling behind? Can we take a whole day to just be outside? We have to do luge lessons and horseback riding and piano and soccer. Otherwise, our kids will be falling behind. So I think that the lack of time in nature kind of comes from this fear of just, we have to be doing everything all the time, and we can't have any downtime. And in fact, everybody needs downtime in order to thrive. I've even heard some people refer to kind of the activity, the structured activities, especially adult directed activities. Those are kind of the inhale. And then when you have downtime, that's the exhale. And we can't just inhale all the time, we'll burst. And that's what I think a lot of kids are doing right now, is they're bursting from the constant inhale without a single chance to exhale. And parents too. And so I
Mm.
think time in nature really provides this exhale, as you can just take some time, hopefully just not be rushed. Just like my 7-year-old just, last couple weeks ago, she was just observing this dragonfly for like 45 minutes, and usually she's not that laser focused on something, but, we'd had kind of a busy few days and she just wanted to sit there and observe for a while. And sometimes kids just need to do that.
Mm.
My other kid was out there, climbing in trees, and I couldn't find her and running everywhere. So, it's not that they're all just going to sit there and be zen like, but
Right.
I think they can find a way to get what they need in nature. So I think yeah, that's really, really big.
Yeah, I am so all about that. I remember my one of my children that had the hardest time with regulation. Definitely had a season of really intense rage episodes. I remember when I homeschooled him for a little while and we did the Charlotte Mason approach, which is very heavy on outdoor, 6 hours a day is what she recommends. And we were outside all the time. And I remember him just standing there and this butterfly just comes and lands on his hand. And it was, and the butterfly stayed there for several minutes and he just
Wow.
observed and he was so gentle. And it was so powerful because it this whole idea of exhaling and being and regulating, and that's kind of leading into what I want to go to next, is this idea of how nature can regulate us. And
Mhm.
obviously he was very in his own zen like state to be able to have a butterfly
Mhm.
land on him like that. And so I love this topic because I'm so pro pro outdoor unstructured time.
Yeah, it provides so many opportunities to get what they need. And I think that also, I don't aim for a specific number of hours. I know a lot of people are out there tracking their hours and it's great if that works. But I don't think it should be another thing where it's like now you have to be
Yeah.
an astronaut and you have to cook all the meals and you have to homeschool and also spend 6 hours outside.
Yeah.
It can
Right,
easily
right,
become
right.
another achievement goal. And so for some families, maybe you get outside every day in the morning for an hour and that sets your day off on the right note. For us this past school year, we tried to aim for 1 to 2 days where we could spend a large chunk of hours outside, like maybe six. But we were both working full time, my husband and I. We didn't have childcare. There's no way for us to get outside for 6 hours every day. It wasn't
Oh yeah.
realistic. But 1 day a week was pretty realistic. So we made sure to build that in, and
Yeah. And that's what's really nice is like getting into a habit. Like maybe you make it into a fun goal, like every Sunday after church or whatever. Every Saturday we try a different state park or like, and so then you can kind of make a day of it and it's really fun.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's a good way to do it too. So you don't feel like, oh my gosh, we're just outside in the street, outside the front door. Like, what do we do? Like, this is boring.
Exactly. And
Like,
I know I can tend toward kind of being a little bit like regimented sometimes when it comes to numbers. So for me, I'd be standing there like, we can't go inside yet. We need 5 more minutes out here.
yes.
Probably
You
not
know,
contributing to our
oh, wait, 30 more seconds.
exactly.
Nobody go in. Yeah.
Exactly. That would be me if I tracked hours. So I just don't.
Yeah, no, and I think that's totally realistic. And like, throwing out 6 hours a day can feel like really daunting too. And so I am a huge advocate of like, go from an F to a D minus and call it good.
Exactly.
Like, don't stress. Like, just be happy with adding a little bit more, and it does have a benefit to it.
Yeah,
Oh, I love
exactly.
that. So in your study or your research, or obviously you really know your stuff about being outside and this unstructured mentality. What benefit do you see in the regulation or the ability of our children and ourselves to regulate when we add that unstructured time? Like, how does that relate to how we can regulate ourselves? And if just in case parents aren't familiar with that term, like, to be regulated means that you can be in your wise mind, you can use your full brain power and access the good frontal cortex, like where you can really use your higher thinking and feel at ease in your body and in your mind and soul. Like, at least that's kind of how I would describe it. But
Yeah, that's great.
yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes from kind of the multi-sensory nature of being outside because all your senses are kind of firing on all cylinders, especially if you can get outside into more of like a nature area as opposed to a playground. I mean, playground time is great. My kids
Right.
still love them. Nothing wrong with that. But if you can get outside into more of an area where maybe you're doing a little hike or letting kids just climb on rocks and trees and the stream, then you're really getting this multi-sensory experience. And what I've read is that having this sort of monotonous sensory experience where you're just getting one sense all the time, it's actually a source of stress to humans. And we tend to live in a very visual heavy culture. So we're reading books and we're online on screens, and all of that's great. Nothing against books, obviously, or even, we're not screen free. We do screen time right now. This Zoom is enabling this. So that's all
Yeah.
great stuff. But if we overdo it on just one sense, that actually becomes a source of stress in our lives. And so, kids naturally gravitate toward, they are seeing and hearing things, but they want to touch everything and taste it and smell it. And, they know that they need this, and nature provides a chance. Hopefully they're not putting everything in their mouth forever. But the other sense is, they can be out there touching things and they're hearing things. And it's this whole immersive environment that I think is really beneficial.
Right. I know. I love watching my kids in a garden. Like even just having a little garden and they go out and they pick and they are so excited and in such a good mood when they just get to go out there and frolic and they get to try things, and nothing makes your kid try a vegetable than if it's growing in their garden and things like
Exactly.
that.
Exactly.
So
Yeah, they love it.
yeah, so there's a lot of ways I like that. Like there's a lot of ways to add this element of unstructured nature, play, multisensory. Um, so it's accessible. No matter if you're in an apartment or living near a state park, you can add some of these elements, which is really nice. Um, okay, so I saw something on your Instagram page and it was like, um, when our kids are testing us. So we're going to add in a little bit of this whole like, okay, the tantrum stuff, it's coming in.
We
What's
all go
really
through it.
going on? I know it's like you can't avoid it all the time, right? And then it's okay. It's okay to have these big emotions. But what's happening when our kids are testing us and we're tempted to get out of our regulated state and things start getting a little high energy in the dynamic?
Yeah. Yeah. So there are a few things that I've discovered from just reading things and my own experience as a parent that are going on. So one is, I think for the most part, we're all human beings. We're just out here following our own agendas. We're just exploring the things that we're interested in. We're doing stuff. And when somebody else tries to impose their agenda on us, we're like, hang on, I'm busy. I'm doing this. I want to do this right now. And we resist, just immediately jumping into somebody else's agenda. And that's just as true for kids as it is for parents. We all are telling each other, like, just a second. Can we do it? Can I do it later? Hoping that they forget about it. I think that's true for kids. And they're just as wrapped up in their agendas as we are in ours. Now, our agendas might be like, hey, you have to brush your teeth, and that's valid, but it doesn't mean that they see it that way. So it's not that they're trying to oppose us or be defiant. It's just that like they're busy, they're living their lives, and they don't want to be interrupted to brush their teeth. I get that. It doesn't mean they don't have to brush their teeth, but they can be upset about it, and that's reasonable. Um,
Yes, that is so hilarious. I think that we forget we do the same thing. Hey, mom, help me with this. Hold on, let me finish this email I'm writing.
exactly.
Or they grab a toy from a friend and we're like, grab the toy and like, don't grab the
Exactly.
toy. And it's like there's so many times that we do these things that we're
Yeah.
telling them not to do, like literally in the same moment.
Exactly.
So it's like
Yeah, so I think that's a huge one.
yeah,
It's just
and
like,
that
I'm just doing my
awareness
best.
is like, so what do you do in that instance? Like your child's engrossed in something, they need to brush their teeth. If you just make them do it, that could definitely instigate a meltdown or a
Mhm.
tantrum or something,
Yeah.
or frustration, if anything else. So what do you do instead?
Right. I mean, my kids are a little bit older now at 9 and 7, so it's definitely gonna be different for 1, 2, and 3-year-old. But we just kind of like it's more about building in a routine. Like we have kind of this is what we do in the mornings, and then at some point they go and like brush their teeth after breakfast, and then again in the evenings. We kind of have like our winding down time after dinner, and then there's like a ramping up time because we do like a bedtime. It's like a gymnastics routine. Put on a play.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of how bedtime looks around here. But
I
in
love
there somewhere it's kind of like we have it's kind of just like in the routine. And so as long as we give them a heads up, like, hey, in 15 minutes we need to wrap this up and start getting ready for bed, they kind of get it now. And if not, then it's usually more that there's some other underlying issue. But yeah, I think even for a younger kid, just giving them a heads up and trying to make it fun. And like, do you want to like you want to take the train? Should we be airplanes? I mean, bringing some playfulness into it is always helpful. And sometimes all of those things fail and you just have a big emotional outburst, and that's just part of being a parent too.
Yeah. No, I get it. Yeah, I love that. I love giving the setting them up. Okay, we're going to do this, then we're going to brush teeth, then we're going to read a book, and then we're going to, yeah, I love that too. One of the Tosin, a educator I spoke with yesterday, she always says like, now then, or now we're doing
Right.
this, then we're going to do that, or next
Exactly.
we're going to
Yeah.
do this, and like or it's kind of like that, yes, and we're going to finish this first. Like, I've heard a lot of different ways you can say that, but I
Exactly.
do
That helps a
really
lot.
like having a catchphrase that is kind of your go-to, because it just makes it easier than like reinventing the wheel every time, and it makes
For
it
sure.
easier to remember. And
Yeah. I also find it's helpful for us that we start bedtime pretty early. We're actually night owls, but we get ready for bed pretty early because if it's at the end of the night, the last thing we do, they're exhausted, I'm exhausted, that's when it doesn't go well. So if we give ourselves like a good 90 minutes before they're actually going to really go to bed to get all ready and then they can still play, then it's like, okay, I'll just go do that real quick and then I'll play again. And it's not such a big deal. Where if it's like, now you have to stop what you're doing and you have to just like end all of this, for the night and go do something you didn't want to do, feels like a bigger blow.
I love that. I actually think that's a really good idea, and I really feel like that's what we do at my house too, because it's like, then it's not rushed. Then you're not feeling under the gun, and so everything
Right.
goes better. Because like, as
Mhm.
like the whole summit, the theme is like, the more anxious we get, or the more frustrated we get, the more under the gun, whatever. That's when then our kids are feeling it, and things just start to
100%
escalate,
true.
and
Yeah.
nobody feels good.
You have to be in a
Yeah,
position to be able to de-escalate and not to escalate. Otherwise, all bets are off and it goes
right.
poorly.
Yeah, let's go do this real quick and then we'll come back. Yeah, and I love the airplane or the piggyback ride, or
Sure.
like,
Yeah, that's
add
fun.
in the magic fairy dust wherever you possibly can, and everything goes better.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. So I wanted you to share with us about the extravagant level of affection study. I feel like this is a really good segue after the magical fairy dust and the airplane rides and everything, because this really goes hand in hand with that. And when I read that, I was really moved. So I'd love to hear a little bit more.
Yeah, yeah, a lot of people like that one. It was, it spoke to me too because I'm probably more of an extravagant level of affection person with my kids. Like with other people, like I'm not a hugger. I always enjoy when people are like, it's so sweet and they seem like great people, but naturally I'm like, ah. Sensitive space is like great for me. Um,
Yeah.
but with the kids, I tend to be like they're very snuggly, and so yeah. Um, so yeah, this one spoke to me too. But yeah, it was in the 1960s that some researchers at some big name schools, Harvard, Duke Medical School, and Brown, all got together to study. They brought babies into the lab with their moms. I think now it would probably be their primary caregivers, and in that day it was only moms. Probably today it would still be largely moms. And then they just rated the level of maternal affection. So like how responsive were they? How hands-on were they? Like how did they talk to their kids? All of those things. And then they rated them as, most of them were in the normal range. So like 85% of parents were just like normal levels of affection. And then a small amount, 6%, were labeled as extraordinary levels of affection, where they were just like super affectionate with their kids all the time. And then 30, I think it was 35 years later, they followed up with these same babies who are now adults, and they just tried to see like how did the kids fare. And what they found was that the babies who had grown up with the extravagant levels of affection were actually the ones who enjoyed the highest levels of well-being. So they were the least likely to be anxious and the least likely to feel like hostile, and they were just generally like really well adjusted and happy people. So it was just like a nice study that showed that sometimes people are afraid of spoiling their kids or giving them too much attention, and this is just a great study to throw out there if you ever need it, to say like, hey, having more affectionate parents is actually great for kids.
Oh, I love that so much. And that's so true. We worry, but I need to give them tough love, or I need to do this, or I need to set them up for the real world. No, you don't.
Mhm.
Like the real, like loving them with this extravagant love is what's going to set them up for the real world. And
Absolutely.
that's so powerful.
Yeah, exactly. And home is kind of like your haven away from the rest of the world. I mean, I think Julie Bogart says this, she's a big name in homeschooling, where like the rest of the world doesn't always, like understand them and isn't always going to snuggle them after a hard day. And like, you got to send your kids out into the world at some point to learn about stuff and meet other people and work with other people. But then they come home and they have that place where they can really be themselves and, get that affection and love. And that's what home is for.
Right. And I love that. And to tie that in with the stop tantrums before they start, because you are the person who loves them, because you are the safe person, you might be that person that they kind of vent to. I know sometimes you might hear a friend that babysits every once in a while or a grandparent. Well, they don't act that way with me. And we
Yeah, they
think
don't trust you.
exactly. So take it as, in a way, like a good thing that you are the safe person. You are that extravagant, loving mother or
Yeah.
parent figure to that child. And when they have those moments where they're out in the real world and they're getting a dose of feeling the opposite of extravagantly cared for, and they come
Yeah.
home and they might vent, but at the end of the day, like they will, it
Yeah,
will
they have that
pass.
place to go. Exactly. There was this article, it was just like a satirical, humorous article, but the title was something like kids act 800% worse when their mother is in the room. And
Yep.
it's kind of funny, but it's kind of true. Like they're going to show all of their emotions when they feel like it's safe to do so. Just like adults. I mean, if you have like a big meeting and like something didn't go well at work and you have a serious meeting with your boss, you're not going to break down there. You're going to wait till you get home, and kids are the same way. So
Right, right. No, that's such a good point. And again, it's like that awareness of like kids are human and we're human and we really all do the same things, and hopefully we're a
yeah,
little bit farther along on the with our skills and tools, and that's
exactly.
yeah, what we're hoping to provide here are some strategies. So,
Mhm.
um I before we wrap up, is there anything else that any other ideas or strategies you use to make outdoor time or unstructured play accessible to parents that it might be new to them, or if people are wanting to add more unstructured time to their schedule?
Yeah, I think, I think if you can find a group or a friend, I think that's a great way to get started. Maybe somebody else who's gone before. It can be a little daunting to go on a big hike by yourself. I still don't always like to do it. Just it feels like a safety precaution just to have another parent there with me. So it's nice to go with somebody else, and then you can just kind of, take it slow. Like don't try to do a 6 mile hike on the very first day. That's going to be tough. Just find a little spot, ask around, and set up, bring a little blanket maybe if you want to, and bring a lot of snacks. I would say do that,
Yeah.
and just yeah, just plan to. Yeah, I think kids, especially as they get older, they love to have friends. So if it's safe to do so in your area, maybe find another family, team up, just try it out and start small. Like you said, I think that's the key to anything. I remember listening to this TED talk where it was like, if you want to be somebody who works out, start by just working out for 1 minute every day. And then, in 30 days, you can always add some more time. And I know my tendency is like, oh, okay, 1 minute. Well, that sounds great, but I'm an overachiever. So I'm going to do 30 minutes every day. And of course, then I would like drop off after 3 days because it's too much of a commitment. And so,
Yeah, it's like an all or
you know,
nothing.
yeah, exactly. So you really want to avoid that pitfall and just, start small. You can always ramp up if you need to.
Right. Yeah, no, I think that's great advice, and we gave some ideas too for starting small, like have a tomato pot that your kids can plant together, or
Mhm.
outside, or start with the playground, or
Mhm.
have a
Exactly.
picnic outside, or do, and like getting the kids involved, like, will you plan a picnic? And I like to do I host cacao ceremonies, and flower tea ceremonies, and I'll have my daughters do nature hikes with me, and we'll collect things to like decorate and
Oh,
so they'll collect little flowers or leaves or sticks, and then they like make their little like area, and they like set it all up and make it really pretty, and like that'll be like a whole afternoon, and then then you have the tea and it's like before you know it, it's been, and like they're really doing something very beautiful, and there's
mhm.
so much there, but yet it was like it was just unstructured and child led at the same time. So
Yeah, exactly, and they get so much out of that. Yeah,
they do.
they learn a lot.
It's so fun. I love it. I love it. Well, I have so enjoyed talking to you, and I'm picturing you like lecturing at a university, and I'm like, oh, you're so smart. Like, I bet you just do such an awesome job. I'm like really
Thank you.
inspired and revitalized in my own commitment to unstructured play. And just whenever I talk to somebody like-minded, it just reminds me of why I do that. Cause I do tend to worry like, oh no, I should have my kids in more activities. And so it's nice to be reminded, like, yeah, no, this is really, really a good thing. And just before we go, will you tell us a little bit more about Raising Wildflower Kids and your blog and how our viewers can get in touch with you?
Sure. Yeah. So I started Raising Wildflower Kids as a way to kind of maybe try to, in some small way, shift the culture on this overcommitment schedule approach to childhood, and just having more of a natural growth, letting kids play freely, develop deep bonds. And so you can find my blog at raisingwildflowerkids.com, and I'm also on Instagram under Raising Wildflower Kids, as well as on Facebook, also Raising Wildflower Kids. So pretty simple all the way across the board.
I like it. Good. Yes. And so, yeah, you can message or read her blog. It's really beautiful and really inspiring. And I hope everyone's inspired to just make one small change to be a little bit more unstructured, or give yourself that little reassurance that adding in some unstructured time is really beneficial. So, thank you.
Thanks so
Thank you for
much.
being here. I really appreciate it.
It was a lot of fun. Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. Take care. It was so nice meeting you.
You too. Bye.
Bye.